Hello students, welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Dr. K.R. Ram Mohan, Associate Professor, Head, Department of Anthropology, Sikkim University. Today we are going to talk a module on phenomenology and ethnomethodology. This module is from the paper Theories and Methods in Social Cultural Anthropology. Before we go to this module, let us see what are the learning outcomes and objectives. Through this module, one will be able to know about the phenomenology and ethnomethodology. Along with it, the text in the module gives an insight on the origin and anthropologist view about phenomenology and ethnomethodology. This module also tells about how phenomenology is different from ethnomethodology. Before we start this two important concepts, phenomenology and ethnomethodology, phenomenology is basically a classical philosophy concept. Classical philosophers are more interested about the nature of how people experience, the process of experience that takes place in the mind. It is more a domain of how individuals construct reality, how people, while constructing reality, report this reality, and this is all basically subjective experiences, particularly at the individual level. So phenomenological approaches have caught the attention of anthropologists to see how people have these subjective experiences. Phenomenologists have given insights to anthropologists on the process of thinking and how individuals' lived experience, how people construct illness, I mean the sufferer's experience. In a sense, the observer cannot understand and perceive if someone is suffering from illness. No matter how much he explains, we could only come to a conclusion that someone has some problem, health issue, or someone is suffering from something. But the extent of suffering, the degree of suffering cannot be conceptualized by the observer. It is only left to the individual to what extent this particular health issue is causing problem to him or her. And the process of healing, how people heal others. There is a subject-object relation here. Violence, how much people suffer from violence. The degree of suffering cannot be understood. Morality, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is correct, what is incorrect. Bodiliness, what does it mean body to one? How do one perceive their body as a sight? Sensory perceptions, how people experience these various stimuli in this natural world. Someone have some experience, some the other have some experience. Experiences cannot be same. So what does make one to feel or to have this kind of an experience? Perceptions, how people perceive the same object, your perception, my perception, people's differ in their perceiving of the same object. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to some other? The same object. And how and why we perceive in these different ways. These are very important aspects comes under scrutiny in phenomenology. And the communicative practices between people, which all comes under the domain of a human mind and consciousness. To put it simply, awareness. The whole gamut of constructing the cognized world, and also the aesthetics, subjectivity at individual level, and intersubjectivity between two people. So all these topics have caught the attention of anthropologists, and they want to put it and see whether we can reconfigure to what it means to be human, or to have a body, or what is it like suffering from an individual point of view, and how this people who heal those who are suffering. Hence, phenomenology is a methodology, had roots in philosophy basically, which has been given by a mathematician, Edmund Husserl. So the core of a phenomenological method consists in the disciplined use of the reflective techniques of bracketing and reduction. So what is bracketing? So whether we can understand this experience in which theoretical frame, and whether this all experiences can be reduced to one phenomenon, and to disclose these essential features of intentional objects. So in a sense, we are trying to see the human experience in various forms which are manifested, produced in social practice, can be understood in simpler terms. Now, the same method can be applied to various dispositions of human personality, or various dispositions of human thinking. Individuals have a variety of dispositions or ways of acting and perceiving, and how people anticipate fear, jealous, various emotions, intuitions, to tell about the future. How can they make? So this is all happening in the human mind. When we say this is all happening in the human mind, this becomes transcendental. So what is transcendental? Transcendental means above the human reality, which can only be understood, which cannot be seen. And particularly this conditions and process of subjectivity. Hence, this is called transcendental phenomenology. So being understood what is phenomenology, which is centered around to understand, to get the meanings of human lived experiences, and how do they sort all this cognized world at a human conscious level, which we put it as consciousness, the process of accumulating and the process of understanding, the process of deciphering these information. Anthropologists have developed a concept called ethnomethodology. There are two terms again here. Ethnic is something related to culture, and methodology is a process of investigation. It requires a science of all the techniques, methods, ways and of gathering information from a particular culture or a society of a chosen subject. So ethnomethodology takes this phenomenological understanding of human lived experiences. So this is a descriptive study of people's activities in terms of how do they report and how do they account these practices. What we call socially embedded actors. So here we are calling individuals as social actors. And how do they attribute meaning and rationalize their own behavior and others' behavior? For example, why did you behave like this? Why did he behave like that? So we rationalize our behavior. And why do we rationalize our behavior? Rationalizing means we give meaning to our own behavior in a particular situation for a variety of reasons, to avoid shame, to avoid this thing, to avoid that thing, or to gain whatever may be the circumstance warrant. We give all kinds of explanations to these kinds of things. So ethnomethodology is a study of interaction of people, which is interactive, ad hoc sense making, in a sense that at that particular point of time, in a situation, how and why people meaning their actions. If you ask them, why did you do this? Why did he do that to you? And how do you account this whole social process? So these called as the sites or sense-making sites in a particular situation where the social structures are produced and reproduced through interaction and coordinated talking to others. So the whole aim of ethnomethodology is that phenomena of order are identical with the procedures of the people's actions which they claim they are accountable. So ethnomethodology has been got a lot of popularity through the efforts of Harold Garfinkel, where they said that the investigation of rational properties of indexical expressions. So they say that the process of action which has rationality, because we rationalize our behavior through certain expressions and any other actions, ongoing accomplishments which are taking place in everyday life. So all these everyday affairs are understood and observed and took account from the people's methods. It is not the observer's method, but rather the native's method of taking account for their own actions. And how are they producing? And how are they managing these mundane social affairs? People's actions think that what I do, it is on my own right. Whatever, I never say that my actions are wrong. So how people take their actions on their own right? What makes them to do so? So in this context, phenomenology, which is only a study of experiences at a cognitive level without observing the people, but ethnomethodology takes that cues from phenomenology and take it to the practical level of how people recount their methods. Now, to understand more of ethnomethodology, let us also look into what are the components of phenomenology once again. So, phenomenological approaches to language are very important because phenomenology takes on language, because that is constructing at the human mind. Anthropologists are more interested in this process of discourse. Discourse means how we are talking to each other of a particular phenomena. The narrative practice, in what aspects we are talking, how are we, what is the practice of this communication? It is called narratives. And the semiotics, the meanings of language, which they have some similarity with the linguistic anthropologist. Now again, coming to the core, what I call phenomenological anthropologists, who have heavily depended on the phenomenological theory and insight, are nothing but giving importance to the concept of human experience. Like we understood that experiences comes in various ways, like people's suffering, people's aesthetics, people's healing process, people's judgments, all the array of all the experiences comes under this gamut. There are two ways we have to understand. One is the reflexive way and the other one is the unreflexive way. Unreflexive means very passive. Reflexivity is very active. We are constructing, we are expressing, we are presuming all the cultural assumptions and articulations. About self, what is the self? What is I? Which is basically reflexive. The word I, the word me, the word myself, which takes on a subjective reflexive process, and the social actions. Now, being constructing this subjectivity process, one has to also understand what are the historical and cultural conditions shapes our values, assumptions, and ideas. So ethnomethodologists are more important. So what are the modalities of these engagement? Sensory perceptions known to the people. So the methods are very important here, in a sense that methods means asking people, recording the people's experience. Yet there are no definite methods here. Methods are open here. All the subjective affairs, the misunderstanding that arise from different encounters with people in social interactions, the social estrangement within a community has to be recorded. Now, when people report what is madness, what is illness, how they construct this illness, how they report what is madness in their society. So here the value system is very important, even from a historical point of view. So both the subjective aspects and how they report in an objective way is more important in ethnomethodology. So ethnomethodologist informs us that we should not only rely on what phenomenologists have given a complete subjective way of reconstructing the lived experience. Anthropologists taken further and ethnomethodologists ask us to to combine both the subjective and objective ways of construction of the social reality or any social phenomena at that particular point of time. Because both are necessary, which have been articulated by the informant, the attitudes, the experience may give us many clues of what is the native thoughts, their images, their feelings, their sentiments, their mood swings, their sensations, perceptions, judgments, and many ways and forms of appreciation. And on the physical level, the properties of physical objects, human body, other individuals, animals, all the celestial objects and properties at a cosmological level, natural occurrences, it could be natural calamities or some kind of seasonal rainfall or drought or cold, heat, all these things. Taking this core issues from phenomenology, anthropologists have applied that these insights from phenomenologists are very useful in understanding various social realities. Even to some extent, Clifford Geertz has used this how people in given specific cultures culturally constituted perspectives, which may be commonsensical, scientific, aesthetic, and religious orientation to given social reality. Even how people make a play, violence, and the complex interactions of subject and object. Now, these approaches are till recently were been unrecognized by anthropologists. Anthropologists are more interested in only taking lots and lots of ethnographic data on historical process, on political process, on economic process, on cultural influences, and other experiences. But phenomenological anthropologists are critical that these tendencies towards abstraction, classification, and totalization are very problematic in a sense unless we don't know the actual process examined in interaction and engagement. So scholars ask us to recognize the presence of the social and historical conditions within the human consciousness and to recognize the forms of how individuals have the process of self-deception, distortion, without devaluing the local claims to knowledge. How will they do? So in this way, phenomenology and ethnomethodology do differ in their understanding of these psychodynamic approaches. To take it further, ethnomethodology is more concerned and has its roots from the Parsonian understanding or voluntaristic theory of social action. So that was the base for ethnomethodological approach in understanding cultural process. With the help of phenomenological writings of Alfred Schuch and to some extent of Wittgenstein's philosophical insights. So with these two sources, Parsonian approach, phenomenological approach by Schuch and Wittgenstein's approach of philosophy have have equipped this process of ethnomethodological understanding in anthropological research. Now, Garfinkel have the sustained effort to confront these problems through empirical means. Like his predecessors, Wittgenstein and Schutz, they just only theorized these concepts. But Garfinkel wants to take these insights into a concrete level at abstract, a more empirical level by taking into the native's point of view, by talking to the people, by the methods which people classify according to them. But he has also said that there are certain limitations, even though in this utilitarian thinking. So Parsons' solution centered on the role of moral values in social action. Every society has certain moral principles. Every society is guided with some moral course of action, which are embedded in religion, which are embedded in rules and regulations. And our values are internalized and incorporated into social actors' personality, which guide our actions and becomes normative means. So, Parsonian view is that all moral actions and moral values are institutionalized and shared by members. What is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is correct and what is incorrect. And that leads to social cohesion. That as a society, we all bind together, members are bounded together because of this right and wrong, good and bad actions. So, our motivational wellsprings of action are guided by the social morality according to Parsons. Now, this Parsonian theory or Parsonian insights is like a top-down approach to ethnomethodology. That means there is a social order and it is coming to the individual, and individual is bound to behave in such a way. On the other hand, ethnomethodology confronts that Parsonian view that social action is not guided by the top-down approach, but from the bottom-up approach. And this Garfinkel says that this is a theoretical inversion. That means it is coming from bottom to the up, not Parsonian view that society is imposing on the individuals. So Garfinkel says that the social order is not above the human beings. The social order is cognitive in the human mind of an individual. So what is intelligent or intelligible action? What is an accountable action? It is all being produced by the individual, I mean the social actors level, vis-a-vis with other social actor, and that is how the social order is being produced and reproduced. People check our behavior, we check others' behavior. So this is an ongoing contingent accomplishment by the members' concerted efforts with the subsequent actions. So this view presupposes that situations, norms, and actions are independent activities. We act in an independent way. Now, Garfinkel's findings about the nature of practical reasoning suggest that this viewpoint is fundamentally not fully understood, because It is a reflexive relationship with one another and the capacity to produce how we define these situations. Thus, the experiential reality of social norms and every other organized feature of social life, it all rests upon a foundation of practical reasoning, where action is produced and rendered unintelligible in normative terms. So, the regulation of social behavior is fully guided by the rational thinking of individual. Now, let us see the two distinctive features of phenomenology and ethnomethodology. To put it simply, phenomenology as a classical philosophical branch of study of lived experience, which completely rested upon at a theoretical level, which completely gave insights that how a human mind works in a more general terms, in a more universal terms, that how people make these lived experiences and what happens at a consciousness level. On the other hand, ethnomethodology makes us to go to the field, makes us talk to the people, makes us to find out how social actors define certain situations, how social actors give meaning to their experiences. And it is our job to find these individual social actors' methods of expressing the social reality. So, this process is ethnographic description of actors' reporting and accounting practices, which is not there in phenomenology, which they gave only some insights. But both these approaches show the elementary process of sense making. However, ethnomethodology takes to the next level with that theoretical insights into practical, culture-based, people's own accounting. To summarize, phenomenology, a branch of philosophy which has contributed immensely in giving insights about how people experience, how people make sense of this experience, how individuals construct social reality, how individuals categorize and make sense of the immediate social reality. On the other hand, ethnomethodology, taking insights from both the phenomenology and Wittgenstein's philosophical insights and some linguistic concepts, semiotics, to the natives level, and to seek how individuals experience, how individuals report, and how individuals make sense of their everyday social life. So, ethnomethodology has its roots from Parsonian insights of social action, Schu's phenomenological approach, which combines both subjective aspects and the objective aspects of individuals' lived experience, individuals' everyday interaction, and how people rationalize their behavior, what it is correct to them, what it means to their behavior, and within this how social order is produced and maintained for social cohesion.